Today I'm going to show you how you can use AI to help create a vector t-shirt design that you can sell on a print-on-demand site or supply to a commercial t-shirt printer. Now the process I'm sharing is going to be primarily conceptual, so that way you can apply it to whatever programs you decide to use. But in this particular video, we're going to be using Midjourney and Inkscape. And the reason I've gone with Inkscape is because it is free vector design software. So if you're not used to this process, you can download it and start working with this straight away. Now the first step is to generate a focus graphic using AI. Now, most of the best designs you see out there have a pretty good focal point, something that grabs your attention, that looks really good, and then you add other design elements, whether it be borders or text, around that element. So we're going to jump on a Midjourney and we're going to start generating our design. Now, first of all, we need to come up to our options in the prompt bar and set a good aspect ratio. It's going to be tall to fit our shirt. So I'm going to go for about 3:4 here because I think that will fit a shirt pretty nicely. And then I come up and type in my prompt. Now, before we do this, we need to include some things in our prompt. We need to include the subject, the color palette. We need to use the words vector or vector art to get that vector-friendly design. Also, t-shirt design, so we get something suitable for our shirt. But also, we want to add the color of the background and styles or elements we may want to add into the final design. Adding these gives us a better chance of getting the results we're after. I'm going to start with my subject, which is Miyamoto Musashi. I'm going to create a Musashi-themed t-shirt with a quote. But as we go along, you can see the color I've used. You can see I've mentioned the word vector, and also shirt design, but I'm also going to put on a plain white background to keep things clean and design friendly. But on top of that, we also don't want it to appear on a shirt, so I've added the negative words --no mockup. And then we submit. Now this type of prompt formula will work pretty well across the board on most AI art platforms, but if you're not using Midjourney, using --no might not work. You need to find a negative words sort of like option there somewhere around where you type your prompt, and that will allow you to put that word mockup in to help prevent it being put onto a shirt within the image. And so we've ended up with these 4 images here. They all have the black and white look to them. They all have a nice clean design, plenty of space around them. I could use any one of these in a t-shirt, except for maybe this last one where the legs get cut off at the bottom. But I'm always a big fan of going through, trying a few variations, and then picking the best from a variety of different images. And I go through, I can see I've got a few good ones here. I'm going to scroll down, but I really like this image right here on the first lot of generations. So I'm going to work on that. Now it's important that you do actually try to re-roll or retry certain prompts, make various different adjustments and try and tweak what you're after. If you haven't seen my previous workflow video on how to create a movie poster, there's a lot of good information in that on a good process for creating your images. I highly recommend you check that one out. But otherwise, just simply keep trying until you find something that you want to work with. Now one issue is that this guy has way too many swords in the image, so we're going to have to edit those out. So I come down over here to edit, and I use my brush tool to just simply mask out the swords that I want to remove. I'm just going to prompt for something simple like the word white, since we're removing them and we have a nice clean white background. And it's not always going to be perfect, so we need to keep on going and refining until we get the final result using the editor. Now, it is important to edit out and fix up some of these details. You do want a little bit of pride in your work. You want to make sure that things are actually looking cohesive. But I just want to also mention, most of these platforms have some form of editor that allow you to make small changes like this. It's just a matter of learning your platform to find out where you can go through and fix up those details. But now I have the final result that I'm happy to work with. So I'm actually going to go ahead, and I don't even need to upscale it. I'm just going to download this as it is. And then we can move on to the next step. And next we need to convert that focus graphic from a bitmap image into a vector graphic. Now after this step, we're going to be going into some vector design software to import our design and start making our edits and laying things out the way we want. Now I say this because most vector design software actually have bitmap to vector conversion built in, but some of them are actually not that good. So I'm going to touch on how to do it on Inkscape, which has a pretty decent converter, but I'm also going to give you one other option if you're not quite getting the results that you want. But keep in mind, you can convert to vector reasonably effectively in programs like Adobe Illustrator or even Corel Draw. So you can check those out. There are links in the description below, and these are the more professional level programs I would recommend you eventually learn to use. Now, if you haven't already got it, head to inkscape.org. It's totally free and there's a link in the description. Come to download the current stable version. Now, once you've installed Inkscape and opened it, you can come down here to create a new document. And then we can drag and drop our image in to Inkscape's canvas, and you're going to get some options here. Now, I leave these pretty much all at default. Click OK, and our image is now on the page. and I can resize it to fit. I can do this. Now it does warp a little bit, so if you hold down Control, it will keep the proportions the same. Now if we want to convert this into a vector, we right click and go to Trace Bitmap. Over on the right here, you notice there's a few different options. There's single scan, and if you look down at the preview, it's just a single color vector. What we want is to go to multicolor. Now you're going to notice here we've got gray and black. So the detection mode, we're going to switch over to colors. And because we essentially are working with 3 colors, which is white, black, and red, our scans we're going to bring down to 3. So we have 3 colors, 3 scans, and all of these settings I have here, I'm going to basically turn off. And smooth can work if we have a simpler image we've actually created. So if I turn this on and hit apply, you can notice that we've lost a lot of the detail. So I'm going to hit Control Z for undo to bring it back. And if I turn smooth off, click on my image and apply again, we get a lot more detail. But the corners are a little bit sharp. But this is one of the cool things about Inkscape's vector converter, is that you have these options to play with. So once again, hit Control Z to undo, click on my image, and I'm going to turn on smooth corners and just adjust that a little bit. I find the preview down here to be a bit hard. I can't find a way to zoom in on it, but by simply hitting apply, I can see that looks a bit better. I can hit Control Z, I can bring it back, and with speckles, I can adjust this to see what that does. I actually recommend just going through and seeing what results you get with these sliders. Now also I want to remove the background because I do need the figure to be transparent. So I'm going to turn on remove background, with speckles, smooth corners, I think about here. Again, I click my image, so it shows up down the bottom here. I hit apply, and you can see once again it's a little bit too smooth. So you just need to adjust it back and forward. But I'm going to hit undo, turn speckles off, click on my image again, and apply. And that's about the best result we're going to get with this converter. Now, having those different settings is quite useful. Now, which settings you use will depend on each individual image. Every image is different. Whichever one looks the best and what you actually envision for your vector graphic is going to be what you use. So you have to adjust, preview until you find what you want. Now, also want to mention, you want to make sure your images are very flat, simple shapes. So when I say simple, I don't necessarily mean they can't have a lot of detail, but it can't be things like gradients and fades and things like that. You want your image to be nice, flat colors with nice, solid shapes so it can be easily converted into vector. Now, if this doesn't work for you, I have another solution, which is called Vectorizer. Simply drag and drop in your file from Midjourney, and it will use AI to scan the file and actually traces it into a really high quality vector image. And I've found this so far to be one of the best platforms and probably gives the best result for most vector images. Now, if you're happy with the preview, come up and hit download, and then you have a bunch of options that you can use to download your file. I recommend simply focusing more on the file format. I usually go with PDF, and I come down to download, and I just want to mention this is a premium app, so you do have to pay in order to use it. So I've used this in the past, so I signed up for a premium plan, downloaded our vector graphic, and as you can see, things are looking pretty sharp, and I think our vector file is ready to use, whether we use Inkscape or this, to go on to the next step. And that is to use vector design software to create the layout and design of our shirt. Now, like I said earlier in the video, we're going to be using Inkscape for this process. But I do want you to seriously consider that if you're going to be looking to do this as a professional designer or something you want to do long term, you're going to get the best results choosing something like Adobe Illustrator and learning your way around that platform. It's the industry standard and is without a doubt the best vector program out there for creating these kinds of designs. But also another good example of a program is Corel Draw. Corel Draw doesn't work too bad. When I was a graphic designer, I was a graphic designer for 20 years before I did YouTube full time. I used a combination of both Illustrator and Corel Draw depending on where I worked before I eventually created my own business. So we're going to look at Inkscape here, but I do recommend that if you want to get a bit further, check out Adobe Illustrator if you want to have a bit more control and take this further in the long run. But because Inkscape is free, this is a nice place to start. At the moment, we actually have two separate pages, which we don't want. So if I come down the left here to the bottom, there's a little pages tool. If I click on that, I can actually select the individual pages. And once I've selected this one, I hit delete on my keyboard to remove it. I'm now going to come back up to my arrow key and just sort of move this guy into place. Now this is a Musashi themed shirt, so I'm going to add in a Musashi quote. Now I've gone to Google and simply searched for Musashi quotes, and you can do some research and try and find a good quote to go by. Keeping in mind, there are a bunch of these pages that have different quotes, but also you can come up here to images and find other quotes here to get a bit of an idea. Now I really like this one here, do nothing which is of no use. So I'm going to use this one as a quote from my shirt. Now don't forget, you can always use the same template and save a number of quotes and put them all up, so you can create one after another pretty easily. Or you can even switch it out and use the same template for various personalities and their quotes. So just remember, you don't have to stick with just one. You can also stockpile some quotes to create various designs later on. So I come back in Inkscape and I want to essentially type this quote here. I'm going to try and make a block that runs down the side next to him. Whatever you envision, you can always play around and see what you like, but for the sake of showing you what you need to know, we're going to go straight ahead and try and create this sort of like block quote over here. So I come down to this little A symbol, which is the text tool, and I click and type in the quote. I'm going to zoom in a bit, and now I have the quote. I can enlarge it, but I'm going to need to break this up in order to get it into a block, but also I want to choose a different font. This doesn't look very good. So again, keeping that text tool selected down here, I now have the option to change my font. Now again, you can scroll through, find a font you're after, you get a little preview here, but you can also come up here if you know a font to simply type in and search. So I'm going to look for Blow Brush, and that has a nice cool feel to it, but also the letters are a bit close together, so it's a little bit hard to read. What I'm going to do is select all of it, come over to the right here to these two little A symbols, and I can change spacing and rotation. The one on the far left with the A and the A is the spacing between letters. So if I hit plus, I can hold it down and slowly add in some space between these letters so they're a bit easier to read. Now, if you find you're not happy with the fonts you have on your computer, you can go to Google Fonts, so fonts.google.com, and you can download a bunch for free. You can use them commercially, and it's basically just go through, you can search, even filter by different types to find what you're after. Another great resource is Font Squirrel. This is another place where you can download commercial fonts that you can use, and this is just a really, really handy website for anyone looking to get better fonts for them to use in their designs. But also, if you're looking for even more, check out my video on the top places to find free fonts online. I'll leave a link in the description below. That could be very helpful if you're trying to increase your font library. So now I have the text I want to use, and I'm thinking I'll go do nothing which is of no use. So I'm going to break it up into several different lines. So I could right click and duplicate this and do the same again. So I've got 5 lines I'm going to work with. I'm going to double click and remove the text from each line I don't want. So I have do here, nothing, and continue on from there. So now you can see I have my quote. If I drag a box, keep in mind when you're selecting objects, whatever you intersect doesn't get selected. Whatever you completely surround does. So I can move this over. If I wanted to, I could keep this like that, but I want to stick to my block effect. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the ruler here and just drag out a guideline. And I'm going to drag it out to about here, zoom out, and you can see I can use my arrows to, if I hold down Control, keep that proportion. But I can also get a little bit free with it if I want to. I don't usually recommend this, but it might not look too bad. And visually, this is overlapping a little bit, but I feel like it balances out. And then I just try and line up the rest of them in that sort of width. So I have these here. Again, I can select them, move them into a position, even enlarge the whole lot now. I'm just going to click on these guides, hit delete on my keyboard to remove them. And now I'm going to select this whole area, right click and group it. So now I have one solid object to move around. So I'm going to put that in a position where I don't want the sword crossing over too much. So I can find a nice little middle ground. This isn't too bad here. It's sort of not intersecting the letters too much. So it sort of cuts through, helps, still actually legible. Now I'm almost the same height as the figure, and I still need to put Musashi's name in there, but I also want to add in a few design elements to dress it up. So once again, I'm going to go to my letter A and type in his name. So I have Miyamoto Musashi, and if I put it here, I think that'll work pretty well. However, it does blend in with the quote, and I want it to stand out as his name. So I'm going to make it a red color, and I can just come down here and click red, but I like the idea of getting the exact same red as the illustration. So while I have this selected, I can come over to the dropper tool over here, hover over this red, click it, and it will add that exact same red to this text. So now I have the quote and his name and the figure itself. So we've got our Midjourney graphic and we've got some text. Now we could just stop there and upload, or we could even just stop at the Midjourney graphic if we felt it was something people were going to buy. But I actually want to add some design elements to this layout because it just gives you a bit more freedom to create something that's going to grab attention a little bit better. Now you can also get some premium elements. You don't have to use free ones, but to make this accessible for most people watching this video, I've decided to go to Pixabay because I can download these for free and basically use them in my design. So the only thing is with these elements, you can't simply download an element and sell it directly. It has to be a part of a larger design. So I've got Pixabay. I can go straight here to vectors and I can explore the vectors. Or now that I'm here, I can search for brush strokes. So now that I have brush strokes there, hit enter. And these ones here are actually some advertisements for premium brush strokes, but I can look and see what options I have. These might be useful, but I like this collection over here. So I can actually download this pack of brush strokes here because then I get to choose which one I want to use, or even two if I want to keep it looking more unique. So I'll come over here to download. And I don't want a PNG because that's not a vector object. We're trying to keep our design vector, so I'm going to go to vector graphic, which is SVG, click download, and save it to my computer. So now we're back in Inkscape, and I can come over here to File and Import, and we have our brush pack here, and you can see a little preview on the right. So I'm going to hit Open. Again, we get a dialog box. I'm just going to keep it at default, which is the top one for me. I generally would probably stick with the top option. Click OK. And it's imported it into our file. Now, it's made it pretty huge. So holding down Control and using my mouse wheel, I'm going to come out and just resize that. Now, this is one solid group. So I need to right-click, ungroup, and then I can select the individual paint strokes I intend on using. I actually really like these two over here. So I'm going to hold down Shift to select them both, move them away, and then select all of these and delete them. So now, coming back, I'm holding down space to move across. Control my mouse wheel to zoom out. I can position these top and bottom and get a nice brush stroke sort of border top and bottom. And again, I hold down Shift to select both of them, grab the dropper tool and select the red. Now this is a little bit taller than our character here now, so I'm going to highlight all of it, group it again by right click, going to group, and then I can resize it into position. I think that works pretty well. The sword isn't interfering too much, and I do want to keep the sword in there, but overall our design has basically come together, and it's almost ready to export. Now it's a little lopsided. We've got some space here in the left. It looks like it's hugging the right. I want to keep this pretty central. So I'm going to, again, just move it because this will make it easier for us to adjust when we upload. So keeping it reasonably central will just help. But on top of that, if I resize it, I'm going to hold down Shift and Control to resize it from the center, because I want to have a bit of space around it, because when I upload, especially to Redbubble or something like that, it actually tends to sort of go to the edge of the artwork. Now, if you want to send this to a professional printer, you will need to export a PDF. And if you want to use Redbubble, you can use PNG. Other places like Zazzle will allow you to upload and use PDFs. Spreadshirt will take SVG, so you have some options there. But you cannot export a CMYK file from Inkscape, so you're going to need to use something like Adobe Illustrator or CorelDRAW if you're supplying a CMYK file to a commercial printer. But this works really well if you're using a print-on-demand service to print your shirt design. Now the next step is for us to check and export the final design. Now it's rare that you're going to get a perfect output as soon as you're done, so you need to make sure, check spelling, make sure everything is on the design that you intend to be on there, but also there could be little mistakes. We've converted to a vector because the Midjourney image isn't high resolution enough for us to print, so converting to vector has made it scalable. We've removed the background, but there can still be some funny elements in there that we haven't spotted. So it could be hiding, hard to see from where we are. So we need to check and make sure they aren't there so that they don't print onto the final shirt. But on top of that, we're also going to export to a PNG and a PDF. PDF being vector, PNG being a high resolution version of the design that is transparent that we can send off to a print-on-demand company. But there is something else I want to do because I want this to have a transparent background. So I'm going to grab my little box tool over here and just draw a box over the whole design. Red is going to be the same red as the design, so it's going to be hard. I'm going to actually click on yellow so we can see the difference. And over here, I have layers and objects. And if you can't see that, come to your drop down, turn on layers and objects, and you'll see the rectangle here. I can drag it to the bottom, right underneath the final object. And we can see it all looks pretty good, except there's a little bit of white here. There's also a little bit up in the hair, so we want to remove that. Now, if I just click on this, it selects the whole group, which means I can't just delete that white. But if I zoom in, once again, holding and control on my mouse wheel, if I hold down control still, I can click on the object and it will click through into the group, and I can hit delete to remove it. So I can remove any specks of white that I don't want in the image, and now I've cleaned that up. We have no white here. I can now click on my yellow box and delete it. Now, before we export, there's one final touch I want to make. At the moment, we have a lot of space, top and bottom, on this design. I'm going to come down the left here to pages again, because now if I use these square handles, I can resize the page around the design, leaving a bit of space top and bottom, but we want it to be relatively even space. Now, this is a little lopsided again, so we can bring this in a little bit, and that looks pretty good. Keep in mind, as you're working, if you don't want to lose your work, come up to File and Save as you go, so that way you can reopen if something happens or if the program crashes. But now we're ready to export our design. Now, like I said, if you want to send it to, say, Zazzle, or you want to send it to a professional printer that is happy to receive an RGB PDF file, you can come up the top here to Export. And once again, if you don't see that, it's down here to turn that on. So we can choose which page. We only have one page here. And at the moment, the DPI is at 96. Let's crank that up to, we can go 300. I like going to 400. I like adding a little extra. I click on one of the other fields, and you can see that the pixel width has now expanded up to 4,500 by 4,500 pixels. So it's important to check the resolution before we export a PNG. Even though at the moment we're looking at a PDF, 400 DPI, we have our preview down here. The background color is basically transparent. I come down to the drop down, choose PDF, and I can also check this little cog here to see what options I have. I want to actually convert text to paths because I don't want there to be any issues with the text and the embedded fonts. And if there's any effects, it will rasterize them. We may as well match our resolution of 400. Now, a lot of this stuff you don't necessarily have to actually work with, but it's just a good idea to. I click off, and then I export my design. I can also choose which folder I want it to go to by clicking this. So we're in our shirt folder here, Musashi shirt, hit save. And it actually saved a PNG while I was doing that. But if I come down here, choose PDF, check our options again, they've remained the same. It'll export to the same folder. And again, if you want to be absolutely certain, we can still go back to our PNG, export from there, and replace. So simply changing the file format here gives you a few different options. And the second you choose a folder, it does tend to save something anyway, but it's pretty easy to export your design. But if we bring up that folder, you can see here we have our transparent PNG, our SVG, which is the file we were working on, the brushes we downloaded, and also the PDF. If I double click and open the PDF, it looks pretty good. And because we want to make sure it's a vector file, I can zoom in and we can see things are nice and crisp. So we have a nice vector output that we can supply to a professional printer. And we also have our PNG here, which we can supply to another print-on-demand service like Redbubble or something like that. And now we have our file exported, we can send it off to get printed. Now, if you happen to be sending off this file to a commercial printer, I would simply contact them, ask them what they need, send the file on, and start the conversation that way. They'll be able to guide you through exactly what works for them so you can supply a file that works. But we're going to cover the print-on-demand side of this process. Most print-on-demand places don't accept PDFs or SVGs. So Zazzle will actually let you upload a PDF. I believe Spreadshirt will also let you upload an SVG. So those are your vector options. But most of the print-on-demand stores are going to work with a bitmap file like a PNG. So I'm going to go on Redbubble and I'm going to show you how you can upload a print-on-demand design with a PNG file and start selling your shirts online. But just quickly, you might be wondering why we're even converting this thing to a bitmap when we created a vector file. Well, it just has a little bit more flexibility for editing. It also allows us to send to a commercial printer, or if we're using one of those platforms that accepts a vector file, we can use that as well. But this is just showing you how you can use it to simply upscale a design to a much larger file to use as a PNG on one of these other print-on-demand platforms. So I'm on Redbubble here, which is a simple testing account that I've created for videos and testing out various things. And I'm going to come up here to account. And once you've signed up and gone through the process, you can come here to add new work. Now this is free to sign up for. You don't have to pay to sign up. But I can come here to upload new work, or I drag and drop my PNG in. And once that's uploaded, I now need to fill out my title, tags, and description. Keeping in mind that we want to try and target for things that people are going to search for in order to get found on the marketplace. So we have Musashi, who's quite famous. He's a samurai. We have the quote itself. So I can come over here and type in a title. I have Samurai Musashi, do nothing which is of no use. So that way, if people search for samurai, there's going to be a lot of competition. This probably isn't going to come up. But if people search for Musashi, it may come up. But otherwise, I'm going to copy this for now into my description to edit that later. Now I can copy it into here, but we don't need quite all these words. But for tags, we want to add in some words we think people might be searching for. So I type these in separated by a comma. I have samurai, Miyamoto, Musashi, so his name, no use from the quote, but also I have Budo, war, Japan, martial arts. I can also type in sword, katana, anything that I think relates to my design that people may search for. But when I come down here, I don't want to keep this the same as the title, but I like having the same keywords in the description. So I'm going to add a little bit before and after this. So I have famous and legendary samurai Miyamoto Musashi and his quote in a cool martial arts theme style design. So I have the same keywords, and I've covered Samurai Musashi and the quote throughout, along with a few other words as well. So also down here, some of these designs are going to go by default on white. I want to change this color to more of like a sort of yellowy, dusty sort of color. And then by default, it will add that to the background of some of these designs. Now, you're gonna have to go through this whole page. I'm not gonna cover everything here. You can check, make sure everything's lined up correctly. We can see this one's chopped off here. So if I click on that, I can come down and I can scale the image to reposition it. And I can check that it looks good on the hat itself. But you can center it horizontally or vertically. And for each design, you can even replace the image if something needs to be a little bit different for a particular item in this list. But otherwise, I'm happy with that, so I apply changes, and then I can go through. This is currently disabled. I can enable it or disable it. So I adjust each object here, disable the ones I don't want, and then move on to the next step. But keep in mind, you can get a little artistic, like with this phone here. I can move that over and cut off a portion of him. So your design doesn't always have to be exactly the same. We can do something like this if we want to get a little creative on particular elements. And even if I don't hit apply changes, it will keep them anyway. So if I enable this one and click on it, it's kept the changes, and I can move this over to one side. So consider how things may look on each individual item as you're making these changes. So I've made my adjustments. I've disabled the products that I don't want to sell. And now I come down the bottom and I choose what describes this best. I can click 2. So I'm going to design an illustration, digital art. Check if your design has mature content. You can see a description of that here. Mine doesn't, so I click no. And because I have the right to sell this, I'm going to tick this here. You can also read the user agreement if you want to double check those terms. I click save work, and it will add my work to the store. And now I have my listing here, and I can see a preview of the products that this design is actually on. So that's my workflow for creating a vector t-shirt design with the help of AI. We're going to create an image with an AI art platform, could be Midjourney, Leonardo AI, or something like that. Also Kittl, I have a full tutorial for that, which I'll link to in the description. And then we convert that design into vector, bring it into vector design software, and then we add in some text or other elements to polish off that design. Once we're done, we can export it to send to a commercial printer or upload to a print-on-demand service like Redbubble. So that is a pretty simple process, and there's always more you can learn. The more you learn about the vector design software, the better your designs will get. The more you do this, the better you'll get at doing it. Now, also, when it comes to print on demand, it's not a simple case of just uploading your designs and the marketplace will make you a ton of money. You actually want to learn the business and learn what it is to do print on demand, learn the skills behind it. Because when it comes to making money online with anything AI is not the solution. It's just part of a larger skill set that makes things a lot easier and quicker. But I do have a few tips that can help you sell a bit more with print on demand. One is to optimize for search, much like we covered earlier in the video. But also you might want to promote your designs on social media. You could start an Instagram and promote your products there. you can also submit them to things like Pinterest in order to reach another audience and bring them over to your print-on-demand products or your store. But also you could niche down your store. We did a shirt on Musashi, which is a figure in martial arts. So we could easily create a martial arts page and create a whole bunch of different designs around famous martial arts quotes, or even down to things like jiu-jitsu belt colors. Any ideas we have, we can add to some kind of martial arts themed niched down print-on-demand store. But also setting up an email newsletter is another great way. So if you can offer some kind of freebie through your social media, get people to sign up via email, you can send them some valuable info or valuable tips around a certain theme or niche, and then every now and then sell them on your shirts. So send them an email promoting what it is you're selling. And also keep pumping out designs. The more designs you create, the better chance you have of one or two of them really breaking through and starting to become regular money makers. And on top of that, as you sell more shirts or more designs online, people might click through to your profile, which means you get more visits to your profile and more people seeing your other designs. But finally, make sure you keep on learning the craft when it comes to print on demand. Learn how to design better, find other people who are experts in the print on demand industry, learn from them so you can better improve your chances of turning it into a full passive income stream. I am not a print on demand expert, but I have made thousands of dollars with print on demand over the years, so it's something I do dabble with when it comes to creating passive income streams. But otherwise, I hope that you enjoyed that video and found it useful. And if you did, please consider giving it a like, because that is the video for today, guys. And I want to thank you for watching, and I hope to see you again soon. Have a great day.